My relationship to acting is like it always was, even when I was a kid. I think I am who I say I am.
Top 6 actors Meryl Streep hated the most. In the high-stakes world of elite dramatic performance, few can rival the presence and intensity of Meryl Streep, a towering figure in the art of acting. Her meticulous nature and cerebral devotion to character development have long set a benchmark that few can hope to approach, a reputation grounded in near-impossible excellence. Over the span of 5 transformative decades, Streep has reshaped the very definition of acting through a string of roles that demand both range and emotional rigor. Her relentless pursuit of truth in performance has, at times, placed her in subtle conflict with peers whose process she views as lacking in discipline or seriousness. Streep's artistic tensions are compelling precisely because they highlight the deep divide between contrasting acting ideologies in the entertainment industry. Her unparalleled dedication to dialect mastery, psychological complexity, and layered preparation has quietly redefined the expectations she places on those she works with. When collaborators fall short of these internal benchmarks, they often encounter her quiet but unmistakable disappointment, a response more chilling than any public rebuke. Rather than erupting into drama, these disagreements typically reveal themselves as deliberate emotional distance and frosty professionalism, revealing her private critique without a single word spoken. Tensions in Hollywood history rarely match the subtle but persistent divide between Gwyneth Paltrow and Meryl Streep, a rift that's long hidden behind red carpet smiles, yet runs deep with ideological differences. Rather than public sparring, what unfolded was a quiet generational battle, rooted in the veteran actress's quiet but resolute concern over what she saw as eroding values in the craft of performance. From the moment Gwyneth Paltrow was taken seriously in the dramatic sphere of the 1990s, Streep began tracking her ascent with a blend of hesitation and doubt. What troubled her most was the growing sense that Paltrow prioritized fame and optics more than rigorous artistry or transformative performance work. At various points during industry events, Meryl reportedly encountered Paltrow and left unimpressed by what she saw as casualness and charm, replacing thorough preparation. This lack of technical foundation to Streep felt less like innovation and more like neglect toward what true acting demands. Though public gestures between them, whether at the Oscars or Cannes, appeared civil, insiders knew their cordial behavior masked creative disapproval. Award show photo ops may have shown grace, but underneath lay a quiet discontent that never faded. Meryl looks at Gwyneth and sees what's gone wrong in the star-making machine, shared one longtime producer who has worked with both. In her eyes, Paltrow's rise seemed rooted more in aesthetics and privilege than in hard-earned, character-driven growth. That tension reached new heights when Gwyneth secured her Academy Award for Shakespeare in Love, a year many believed Streep deserved far more recognition. Behind closed doors, the Academy's voting integrity was questioned, with whispers hinting at campaigns and connections outweighing performance. Streep didn't name names, but her remarks on preparation versus popularity were seen as unmistakable references to Paltrow. By avoiding direct criticism, she spoke volumes, her silence sharper than any quote. Over time, her interviews increasingly highlighted actresses known for diving deep into their roles, bypassing Paltrow entirely. This deliberate omission felt like a quiet protest, an insistence that accolades should reflect craft, not image. For those observing from within the industry, the true weight of their rivalry was in what it symbolized. More than personal dislike, it pointed to a generational schism between legacy-driven craft and instant star culture. Streep, an emblem of artistic discipline, appeared to reject the shortcuts she believed Paltrow embodied. Rather than adapt to looser standards, she doubled down on technique and transformative rigor. Their unspoken conflict stood as a powerful metaphor for the larger creative crossroads facing Hollywood. As media shifted toward branding and buzz, the values Meryl upheld began to feel increasingly rare. The divide between these two women became a quiet war between dedication and decor. No raised voices, just cold nods, veiled jabs, and carefully chosen praise for everyone but each other. Streep's refusal to validate Paltrow publicly wasn't petty, it was principled. She seemed to believe that artistic integrity had to be protected, even if it meant drawing invisible lines in plain sight. To many critics and actors watching, this tension represented something far more important than tabloid drama. It revealed a turning point in how excellence is defined, and who gets to define it in the acting world. As younger generations embraced authenticity with a looser grip on structure, Streep held firm to her ideals. Her resistance wasn't just personal, it was a stand for the discipline that built her legacy. Gwyneth, for her part, never acknowledged any tension, continuing to build a brand rather than a canon of transformative roles. She moved on with confidence, but the shadow of that unspoken rivalry remained in the industry's memory. While they may never exchange direct words about their differences, their careers tell the whole story. Each time Streep highlights a rising actress grounded in technique, the omission echoes louder than any feud. And in that silence, Hollywood hears a message about what it means to respect the craft versus simply starring in it. The true debate here isn't about two actresses, but about the soul of cinema itself. During the intense shoot of Sophie's Choice, what unfolded between Meryl Streep and Kevin Kline wasn't just artistic tension. It was a deep, hidden rift behind one of cinema's most haunting films. From the moment director Alan J. Pakula brought them on board, their theater-trained resumes promised synergy. But it wasn't long before their styles clashed more than they connected. Streep leaned heavily into academic immersion, diving into Holocaust trauma and Polish dialects, while Kline opted for a freer, gut-driven performance, which quickly put them at odds during early rehearsals. Every movement, every inflection, she built it like a sculpture, said production designer George Jenkins, while Kevin preferred to let Nathan reveal himself in the moment. Rehearsals transformed into quiet standoffs, where Streep's detail-oriented method locked horns with Kline's unpredictable energy, leaving little room for true collaboration. Things took a sharper turn when Kline allegedly raised doubts about Streep's strict dialect work, hinting that emotional realism was being buried under technical precision. To Streep, that critique wasn't constructive. It was proof, in her mind, that Kline didn't grasp the historical weight she was carrying into every scene. What truly fractured their on-set chemistry, though, was Kline's public take that her method felt too scholastic, implying that it restrained the organic flow of raw feeling. Streep, ever guarded, quietly took that as an insult, and from then on, kept her interactions with Kline distant, measured, and rare. Throughout Hollywood's golden age of serious drama, the uneasy tension between Meryl Streep and Jack Nicholson unfolded as a compelling case of how radically different acting philosophies can breed enduring resentment. Back when producers first floated the idea of pairing them in prestige films during the peak of their stardom, their earliest encounters immediately exposed clashing worldviews that ensured they would never work well together. While Nicholson thrived on instinct and magnetic screen presence, Streep's meticulous preparation and full immersion into her roles posed an unbridgeable gap between their styles. Wherever they crossed paths at film events or award ceremonies, their carefully restrained interactions barely masked a deep-seated dislike, dressed up as polite exchange. Jack embodies the very thing Meryl mistrusts about celebrity culture, noted longtime casting director Juliet Taylor, who had experience working with each of them separately. She always believed his habit of playing Jack in every role ran counter to her own belief that true artistry means disappearing into character. Opportunities for them to co-star in major dramatic works kept surfacing, but Streep often voiced private hesitation, particularly doubting Nicholson's dedication to depth over brand image. Filmmakers who'd collaborated with both stars repeatedly observed that Streep would routinely turn down scripts that required them to share the screen. Things escalated when Nicholson gave blunt interviews, belittling method actors and describing deep character research as nothing more than mental overcomplication that smothers real emotion. Streep viewed those dismissive remarks as thinly veiled criticism, reinforcing her conviction to avoid any joint venture with him for the rest of her career. Tension quietly simmered between Alec Baldwin and Meryl Streep during the filming of It's Complicated, illustrating how even seasoned actors can clash when their comedic instincts and character-building processes are worlds apart. At the beginning, director Nancy Meyers brought them together, hoping their backgrounds in theater would result in a seamless collaboration filled with spark. But what unfolded was a fragile working relationship, barely held together behind the scenes. Rather than aligning smoothly, their differing styles created a subtle storm on set, with Streep's deep dive into emotional realism running counter to Baldwin's loose and energetic approach to getting laughs. Diane Dreyer, the script supervisor, once remarked, "Meryl dissects humor with surgical precision, explaining how Streep rooted every moment of comedy in her character's emotional truth, while Baldwin seemed to treat comedy as a stage for quick-witted spectacle." Instead of finding balance during rehearsals, they often tiptoed around each other's process, trying to navigate the wide gap between Meryl's structured preparation and Alec's spur-of-the-moment impulses. As production wore on, tensions rose noticeably when Baldwin began changing dialogue in real time, forcing Streep to let go of carefully constructed emotional arcs just to keep up. Crew members eventually picked up on her building frustration, especially when she started asking for extra rehearsal time to recenter her delivery after Baldwin's improvisations. What disappointed many in the industry was how promising their pairing once looked. Two powerful performers whose strengths in theory should have elevated the film. But as the shoot wore on, it became clear their working relationship was hindered by conflicting creative philosophies that simply couldn't harmonize. Jeremy Irons' working dynamic with Meryl Streep sparked one of cinema's most intellectually layered rivalries, a tension rooted in the failure of classical training to override core ideological differences in performance. At the beginning, when the two signed on to emotionally demanding projects, what began as mutual admiration soon dissolved into a cool, strained professionalism. Irons' refined and aristocratic view of acting, centered on vocal clarity and composed movement, clashed from the outset with Streep's more grounded and emotionally investigative approach. In rehearsal spaces where synergy was expected, their shared classical education ended up underscoring how divergent their artistic beliefs had grown. Dialect coach Tim Monick, who trained them separately, once remarked, "Jeremy molds characters like sculpted marble, while Meryl digs into them like buried relics," highlighting their polarized approaches. Their disagreement wasn't confined to performance technique. It expanded into how they each viewed storytelling's emotional purpose and the actor-audience bond. Things reached a boiling point when Irons reportedly dismissed Streep's accent mastery as an unnecessary showcase of skill, claiming it distanced viewers rather than drawing them in. Streep, deeply offended, saw this not as critique, but as a fundamental misunderstanding of how meticulous detail enhances, not detracts from, emotional honesty. What stung fans most was that this powerful pairing, which promised cinematic gold, never yielded its full potential due to their failure to reconcile method with mutual respect. Despite both actors reaching the summit of their craft, the divide in how they perceived the essence of character and collaboration proved too wide to bridge. Dustin Hoffman and Meryl Streep's off-screen friction reached its most strained point during the filming of Kramer vs. Kramer, a film where their powerful performances hit a behind-the-scenes clash rooted in vastly different acting ideologies. Right from the moment Streep came onto the set, she found herself working alongside a veteran actor whose unpredictable method style clashed harshly with her carefully studied and cerebral performance technique. Hoffman's infamous commitment to realism often included spontaneous physical gestures during takes, something that conflicted deeply with Streep's calculated and emotionally prepared approach to scenes. More than once, crew members noted moments where Hoffman's impulsive actions completely disrupted Streep's rhythm, pulling her out of character and forcing her to restart her emotional buildup from scratch. "Meryl is like a watchmaker," said cinematographer Nestor Almendros. "Every inflection and movement is deliberate," while Dustin prefers a looser, more instinct-driven method that resembles jazz more than a symphony. Because their styles diverged so drastically, director Robert Benton was constantly caught in the middle, trying to bridge the gap between two brilliant actors who simply couldn't agree on what collaboration meant. Ironically, it was this artistic mismatch that lent their on-screen performances such raw energy, turning their real-life discord into compelling cinematic conflict. Still, the emotional toll of the production lingered. Streep later admitted that though the experience sharpened her performance, it left her unwilling to ever repeat it with Hoffman.